Your soundbar isn't broken, your settings are. So why does dialogue sound weak while explosions shake your entire room? Today I'll show you the 4 settings that instantly fix muffled voices, messy bass, and flat sound. Like the video, and subscribe for honest soundbar reviews that help you buy smarter. Comment. Make sure to tell me what the next video should be about, and check the description for best prices and product links. Fixing muddy bass and muffled dialogue. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to hear dialogue on their soundbar is because the EQ settings are completely out of balance. Most soundbars arrive from the factory tuned for showroom floors, not living rooms. In a noisy electronics store, manufacturers want the soundbar to immediately grab your attention, so they boost the bass and treble aggressively. This creates what's called a V-shaped sound profile, where the low bass and sharp highs dominate everything else. It sounds exciting for a quick demo, but at home, it becomes exhausting. The booming bass overwhelms conversations, while the exaggerated highs make little sound effects overly sharp and distracting. The result is exactly what most people complain about. Explosions are painfully loud, while dialogue sounds buried and unclear. The first thing you need to do is open your soundbar's EQ settings using either the remote or, preferably, the companion app. The app usually gives you much deeper control over the sound profile. Once inside the EQ menu, start by reducing the bass slightly. Most people think more bass automatically means better sound, but uncontrolled bass is actually the #1 enemy of dialogue clarity. When bass frequencies become too dominant, they spill into the mid-range where human speech exists, creating that muddy and muffled effect. Lowering the bass by just 2 or 3 steps often cleans up the entire soundstage immediately, without making movies feel weak or lifeless. Next, focus on the mid-range frequencies because this is where speech intelligibility lives. Human voices mainly sit between roughly 1 kHz and 4 kHz, especially around the 2 kHz to 3 kHz range where consonants become crisp and understandable. Boosting the mids slightly brings dialogue forward without destroying the cinematic balance of the soundtrack. This single adjustment often creates the biggest improvement because it specifically targets the frequencies responsible for vocal clarity. Instead of making the whole system louder, you're surgically enhancing the exact area where speech lives. Suddenly, conversations become easier to understand without constantly reaching for the volume remote. Finally, resist the temptation to overboost the treble. Many people think sharp highs equal clarity, but too much treble quickly makes audio sound harsh and fatiguing. Excessive highs exaggerate S sounds, glass breaking, footsteps, and background noises, while making voices feel thin and unnatural. In most cases, keeping the treble near its neutral setting works best. If the sound still feels slightly dull after fixing the bass and mids, raise the treble by only 1 notch. Small adjustments matter more than extreme changes. Once your EQ is balanced correctly, your soundbar stops sounding like a boomy showroom demo and starts sounding like a proper home theater system designed for real-world movie watching. Choosing the right sound mode. Another massive mistake people make is leaving their soundbar stuck on one sound mode forever. Most soundbars include multiple presets like movie, music, sports, voice, standard, and night mode. But many users never touch them after the initial setup. The reality is that every type of content is mixed differently. A blockbuster action movie, a football broadcast, a YouTube video, and a quiet, dialogue-heavy drama all require different audio priorities. Using the same mode for everything is like using the same camera filter for every lighting condition. It technically works, but it's rarely optimal. Movie mode is usually the default because it sounds dramatic and exciting during demos, but it often reintroduces the same problem we just fixed with EQ. It boosts bass heavily, widens the soundstage aggressively, and prioritizes cinematic impact over vocal clarity. This works wonderfully for explosions and large-scale action scenes, but quieter conversations can start feeling distant or buried again. Music mode does the opposite by focusing more on stereo separation and tonal balance, which is better for songs but can reduce the immersion of surround sound effects during movies. Standard mode tends to sit awkwardly in the middle, without truly excelling at anything. The most important preset for everyday viewing is usually voice mode or dialogue mode. Different brands call it different things like clear voice, speech enhancement, or vocal boost. But the purpose is always the same. Prioritize human speech. This mode specifically boosts the mid-range frequencies responsible for dialogue while reducing distracting background effects slightly. For TV shows, podcasts, documentaries, news broadcasts, or even movies with quiet conversations, this mode can completely transform the experience. Suddenly, you stop straining to understand whispers or muttered lines because the soundbar is actively prioritizing speech intelligibility above cinematic chaos. Night mode is another underrated lifesaver that people misunderstand completely. Many assume it simply lowers volume, but what it actually does is compress the dynamic range. In simple terms, it reduces the difference between the quietest and loudest sounds. That means whispers become easier to hear, while explosions become less aggressive. This is perfect for late-night viewing, because you no longer have to constantly adjust the volume between dialogue scenes and action sequences. Instead of waking up the entire house every time an action scene starts, night mode keeps everything balanced and controlled, while still allowing you to hear conversations clearly at lower listening volumes. Using dialogue enhancement features properly. Beyond basic EQ and sound modes, many modern soundbars include a much more powerful hidden tool specifically designed for dialogue clarity, dedicated dialogue enhancement, or center channel control. This is one of the most overlooked features on modern soundbars, even though it directly targets the exact problem most users complain about. While sound modes change the entire sound signature of the system, dialogue enhancement focuses specifically on the frequencies and channels responsible for speech. It's a much more surgical and precise solution compared to broad EQ adjustments. In most movie and TV surround mixes, dialogue is primarily routed through the center channel. This speaker's main purpose is to anchor voices directly to the screen, so conversations feel natural and focused. The left and right channels handle music, environmental effects, and ambient sounds, while the center channel carries the majority of spoken dialogue. If the center channel level is too low relative to everything else, voices get drowned out by explosions, soundtracks, and background effects. That's why even expensive soundbars can sometimes sound frustrating if this balance isn't adjusted correctly for your room. The fix is surprisingly simple. Open your Soundbar app or advanced audio menu and look for settings called channel levels, speaker levels, dialogue enhancement, or voice boost. If your soundbar allows manual center channel adjustment, increase it by only 1 or 2 decibels at first. That tiny increase often makes dialogue dramatically easier to hear without ruining the cinematic balance of the soundtrack. People often assume major improvements require major changes, but in audio, subtle adjustments are usually the most effective. Small center channel boosts preserve immersion while lifting speech out of the chaos around it. If your soundbar doesn't offer dedicated channel controls, use the built-in dialogue enhancement feature instead. Most brands provide multiple levels, like low, medium, and high. Always start low. Pushing dialogue enhancement too aggressively can make voices sound unnatural, robotic, or disconnected from the environment. The goal is not to make dialogue unnaturally loud. The goal is to make it easier to understand while preserving the realism of the soundtrack. Once dialed in properly, this feature becomes one of the most valuable tools for fixing the constant, quiet dialogue and loud explosions problem that frustrates so many people. Fixing your TV's audio output settings. This is the setting that secretly ruins more soundbars than almost anything else. Your TV's digital audio output format. Even if your soundbar is expensive and supports Dolby Atmos, your television can accidentally cripple the signal before it ever reaches the soundbar. The culprit is usually a setting called PCM. Most users never even realize this option exists because it's buried deep inside advanced audio menus, but it can completely flatten your surround sound experience without you knowing it. Here's the simple explanation. Modern surround formats like Dolby Atmos contain detailed information telling the soundbar where sound should move in 3-dimensional space. When your TV is set to bitstream or pass-through, it sends that original, untouched audio signal directly to the soundbar so the soundbar can properly decode it. But when the TV is set to PCM, many televisions try to decode the audio themselves first. During that process, the TV often strips away surround information and converts everything into basic stereo before sending it to the soundbar. Your expensive Atmos system then receives a watered-down signal and has no choice but to fake the surround effects artificially. The fix is simple, but incredibly powerful. Go into your TV's settings menu, open the sound or audio section, and find advanced audio settings or expert settings. Look for an option called Digital Audio Output. If it currently says PCM, change it immediately to bitstream or pass-through. Auto can sometimes work, but bitstream is usually the safest choice because it guarantees the original surround signal reaches your soundbar intact. Once you make this change, your soundbar can finally process Dolby Atmos, DTS, 10, and other surround formats correctly instead of receiving a flattened stereo signal. You should also make sure your soundbar is connected using HDMI ARC, or preferably eARC. These special HDMI ports are specifically designed to send high-quality audio between your TV and soundbar. If you're still using an optical cable, you're limiting your system significantly because optical connections cannot properly handle modern high-bitrate Atmos formats. Switching from PCM to bitstream combined with using HDMI eARC is often the single biggest upgrade people can make without spending another dollar. Suddenly, surround effects become wider, dialogue becomes clearer, and the entire soundstage feels dramatically more immersive because your soundbar is finally receiving the full quality signal it was designed to process. The final conclusion. So there you have it. Your soundbar isn't broken. It was just being held back by a series of default settings. Let's do a quick recap. First, you tamed that muddy bass and lifted the voices out of the muck by fixing your EQ. Second, you escaped the one-size-fits-all trap by using dedicated sound modes like voice and night mode. Third, you took precision control by boosting the dedicated center channel or dialogue enhancement feature. And finally, you fixed the master setting, telling your TV to stop gutting your audio by switching the output from PCM to bitstream. Each of these fixes takes only seconds, but together, they create a compound effect that will radically transform your home audio. No more constantly adjusting the volume, no more straining to hear dialogue, just crisp, clear, balanced, and immersive sound. Now, go and enjoy your movie night the way it was always meant to be heard.